The memory I have is waking up in the hospital weeks later or whatever it was.
Welcome to Zero. I'm Paul Martin. In this episode, you meet Michael Poslawski, an average guy from East Central Saskatchewan. He defied the odds. Like many of us, he thought, it can't happen to me, but it did. The vehicle he was driving was rear-ended in a blizzard in the Yorkton area, not far from his home. He suffered a brain injury. That was 20 years ago, and still, today, it affects him. It affects vision and hearing. He has problems resting or even sleeping. Also, we look at the approach taken by one of this province's major potash producers on the safety front. As they put it, they just want to get better. Easy to say, a lot tougher to do. But first, we meet Mr. Poslawski. After growing up in the Kenora-Kamsack area, he moved south, about 30 miles, to Yorkton. And while he has a good sense of humor, his life story is highlighted by a set of events that are far from funny.
It's that thing, you say, it'll never happen to me. People buy lottery tickets, right? They say, this is the ticket I'm going to win. But when you look at the odds of it, but yet they get in their vehicles and they say, nothing will ever happen to me. But yet when you look at the odds of being in a car collision, we're all going to be in a collision at some point in our life. There'll be different degrees of those collisions, but we will be in a collision. It's a guaranteed thing. My son is 19 years old. He's a very cautious driver. He's been in 2 collisions already. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Much attention has been devoted lately to the issue of distracted driving, as well as driving under the influence. Legislation to prevent it has been tightened, and an education campaign has been started to remind us of the dangers of distractions while at the wheel. Poslawski's message to all of us is that we should not take such issues lightly. It can happen to any of us, and it will change your life forever.
Every time each of us get into our vehicle, whether we're going down the street or to the next community, we get into our vehicles and what do we say to ourselves? Nothing will ever happen to me. Whether we say it to ourselves in our mind but it's part of the thought process. We think, I am going from here to there. And when I get there, I'm going to do this. But we don't think about what can happen from here to there. A lot can happen. So we don't think of that time when we're driving. Think of all the close calls we have when we drive. People not paying attention, or maybe ourselves, we are not paying attention. We're driving in a strange community or something and things occur. And to say to ourselves mentally or in our minds that nothing will ever happen to us is ridiculous.
But it does happen, like it did to Michael, a 30-year-old who was doing what 30-year-olds do. He had a job teaching music, a young child, basically a normal 30-year-old's life. And in the blink of an eye, it was changed forever, even though many of us might not be able to see it.
For the majority of the public, when they look at a brain-injured person, like today, if someone looked at me and said, they wouldn't say, he has a brain injury. It's an invisible injury, it's an invisible disability. With brain injury, we don't know at the time of occurrence what the end result is going to be when you're done rehabilitation, everything like that. Even though every injury is different in recovery and rehab and everything like that, there's many similarities with brain injury. The things I struggle with now, 20 years later, are invisible to everybody. My difficulties are in the area of vision, some hearing issues, things about being tired, managing this proper sleep, resting properly, all those kinds of things. The normal person walking down the street would never know that. But to me, it's something I live with every day. And I'm okay with that. So very often when people sustain a brain injury, they want to get back to where they were, pre-injury. You know, this is who I was. And unless I'm that person, I am not recovered. It takes a while to realize that you will never be the same. And people that are early in the injury process, they don't like to hear that. I didn't like to hear that. So now that we're 20 years into it now, in my particular circumstance, I've accepted. I will never be the Michael in 1997. I don't wish I was that person anymore. I am who I am today. I don't wallow in self-pity of the changes that have occurred in my life. You know, sure, I reflect on maybe what's happened and recall some of the process of rehabilitation and laugh at myself and things like that. But 20 years after the fact, I don't publicize the fact that I'm a brain injury survivor. I'll certainly at some point, if I see that somebody is going through that, I will go out of my way and say, okay, look, been there, done that. Here's what you can try, here's what you can do. It happened, and I move forward.
Despite the challenges, the fact is he is not and will not be the person he was prior to the accident. Poslasky, though, is confident that he received the best possible help in the recovery phase.
In Saskatchewan, we are the envy of every province in Canada. If there's a good way to say it, if you're going to have a brain injury, have it in Saskatchewan, if that makes any sense. The amount of resources that are here in Saskatchewan that SGI has invested into, Saskatchewan Health, it's amazing, the amount of resources that are available to families and survivors. So typically, with a brain injury, you know, there's the immediate danger of what happened, right? So your intensive care or whatever it is, that immediate medical attention that's required. From there, someone's transferred to rehab. In the case of Regina, let's say it would be the Wascana Rehab Center. That process would be a period of months to years for some people. And then once they're discharged, there's a number of resources like the Saskatchewan Brain Injury Association, just a number of things that are available to the families that support somebody that's going through the process. The health care system that supports brain injury survivors and their families is amazing here in Saskatchewan. You know, from when I can remember that I woke up, I have nothing negative to say about anything as far as medical attention, rehabilitation, the resources that were available to us after to help with recovery and everything. It was just amazing. Everything was there at the right time, at the right place, and it worked out really well.
And while he's accepted the hand that fate has dealt him, he's resolute in trying to alert others to the dangers of a modern world, things that can change your life in a moment. Even when he's asked, looking back, what would you tell your 30-year-old self? And immediately he thinks of others.
The biggest thing I would say to myself, if I had the chance to say something in 1997, it would be that you'd never know what's going to happen. Things happen to people and we just don't have any control of it. When you think of driving, for example, when you're driving down the highway, you think of it. You travel at 100 kilometers an hour, someone's coming at you at 100 kilometers an hour, and the only thing that separates you is paint. That's remarkable when you think of it. The trust we have in the other person, that they're not going to cross the line and everything like that. We always say to ourselves, I'm a good driver. You know, I'm a good driver. That may be true, but we got to think of the other person that may not be a good driver.
One of the biggest potash mining companies in the province and the world is Mosaic. It operates 5 mines, 4 here in Saskatchewan, 1 in the U.S. The company recently completed a major expansion called K3 at its Esterhazy operations, and from a safety perspective, it went off without a hitch. It came in on budget. The company believes those two facts are intertwined. The man responsible for safety programs across the continent is James Firstl. He says safety programs have become more sophisticated, attempting to move from tracking historical data to shaping the future.
When we take a look at our safety initiatives, we certainly want to take a look at our goal setting and our safety performance. And that's really what keeps safety at the top of our employees' minds. We're changing our focus from, lagging indicators, a metric where you're kind of looking in the past, and we really want to get ahead of safety incidents. So we're looking at leading indicators now, and looking at things like potentially serious incidents, and trying to address some of the risk that we identify before it ever turns into an incident. We're taking a look at elements of our management system and how those can help us to continuously improve our processes internally. And we're also looking at our auditing and more so our field level hazard assessments, and really giving our employees the opportunity and the time to identify hazards in the workplace and with a particular task prior to even starting into the task. We want to get in front of those issues before they ever turn into an incident. We want to be able to identify high-risk situations before we ever have a potentially fatal incident.
The company's efforts have been recognized by national industry awards, a significant achievement for an organization that's been undergoing a major expansion program, which means the site was occupied by contractors. The man in charge of capital programs and ensuring all those service and material suppliers meet Mosaic safety standards is Brad Walker.
We've got a number of initiatives. When I think of our contractor programs on our projects, we view that as a partnership in injury reduction. We view them as partners in everything that we do. There wasn't that long ago that we didn't measure the contractors in our safety performance, and a big bold step that our senior leadership decided to do was to include them in our overall performance and take ownership for everything they do at our sites.
Again, one of the key enablers for the company was metrics, finding indicators that they could track that would help them improve their overall safety performance.
It's funny, it wasn't that long ago we were doing lost time injuries and those types of things, and now we've really moved towards, well, what can we do with our near misses? If we have significant near misses, what are we doing to change and try to eliminate those now in the future? It's been a big, bold step again for Mosaic. We've cut our injury rates on our capital projects by 2/3, but that is something that you got to continue to put energy into to keep moving it forward.
Proactivity in safety is so important. I think it's one of the cornerstones of a safety program is being proactive and then doing something with it. You can be proactive, but if we're not responding to what's being fed back to the leadership team, we're really spinning our wheels in that case. So being proactive is so important.
Like any initiative, it's part objective and part process. It takes time to change the way an organization thinks. One individual who played a role in elevating the importance of safety in the workplace within the organization was North American Vice President of Potash Operations, Peter Jackson.
We've always paid lip service to the idea that safety is our top priority. And when you look at mining through the ages, one of the things that when I started the industry in the early 80s, we'd hear senior executives say is that safety is equivalent to whatever. It's equivalent to production, it's equivalent to sales. But somewhere along the line, we had to make a quantum change in our thinking, and it's not equivalent to anything, it is a precondition to everything. So at Mosaic, safety is a precondition, it's a thought process before we embark on, you name it. Starting the mining machine, any part of our business, safety is a precondition. That change in our thought process was 5 to 6 years ago. At the site I was running, I was a general manager at the time, we labeled it obsession with safety, being obsessed with safety. And we took it a step further. If you're obsessed with safety, what does your site look like? What does the culture feel like? What does it feel like to be on a site that's obsessed with safety? Is it different than other areas that you might work? And we started going down that line of our thought processes and reviewing how we do things. And it turned into a number of great ideas that we came up with that actually had a lot of traction, a lot of effectiveness. And the biggest one being where we started going into why do people take at-risk behaviors and what kind of things are management doing that promote that. So in the management meetings, we're all sitting around saying, wow, no, we don't condone safety misbehaviors on our site, but they keep happening. Well, that's actually related to some of the things that we're doing. Whether it's cognitively or it's through the hidden agenda or through nonverbal communication, we're indicating to people that, yeah, we want you to take that little extra risk to get that ton in a rail car. And we had to break that cycle. We had to say that we would prefer 99/100ths of the time for you to shut everything down and think through it. If there's any part of this step that you don't understand, if there's any part of this thing that doesn't look right to you, you have the right, and in fact we insist upon it, that you shut it down and reevaluate it. That took us about 5 years to work that through the organization. And I can say that it actually got a little punitive towards the last 2 or 3 years, where we took it from it's an expectation to it's an accountability. So now we have rules that, you know, if you violate these rules, you're finished. And whether you're a general manager or whether you're the newest person that we just hired, it doesn't matter. If you violate these rules, you're finished.
Our stakeholders understand that, you know, we're a safe organization. Every ton of potash that we produce, we want to do that safely. Our Vice President of Operations has coined the phrase, no ton of potash is worth someone being hurt. And I've carried that with me for as long as I've been with this organization and use it often. So when it's coming from, again, from a high level leader, you know, it makes me feel comfortable that that's a message I can send to the sites and write down again to the frontline worker.
Leadership needs to be in the field. They need to talk to people to find out what's going on. And again, that builds that trust factor. You know, you got to do a lot of listening if you're going to try to influence, you know, program change. And you know, when you're in a leadership position, you need to understand that that feedback from the field is very critical. And our job is to ensure that we push those suggestions forward.
The potash business is highly competitive. So executives like Jackson are very cost conscious. But interestingly, he says improved safety has also meant a stronger bottom line. But they do something you might not expect. They share their best practices with their competitors and the other major Saskatchewan mining companies.
You know, it's the old motto is that there was never time to do it right, but there was always time to do it twice. If you take that out of the equation, the doing it once, even if it's slower, in the end saves you a lot of money. So when I'm talking to you know, the folks in the competitive environment that I want to share, and we share really, really well about safety. I mean, Agrium, PCS, Cameco, all of the producers in the province want to talk about safety and talk openly. We want to all get this right, so we just share on everything. Actually through the SMA and through other meetings where we meet with each other and talk. So we have very, very open conversations about what's working and what's not working. And you know, some of the things that Mosaic's doing are some of the things that we picked up from the rest of the industry, and we're hoping that some of what Mosaic is doing is being picked up by other people. This is something where we want everybody to get right.
All this hard work has led not only to improved safety records for Mosaic, it's brought accolades to the company from its peers. In 2015, it won the prestigious John T. Ryan Award, described as the seminal recognition of safety in a mining operation.
What won that award for us was just really a commitment to get better. I think, you know, when I think back 5 years ago, if we would have just stayed with the performance where we were 5 years ago, I think it equates to basically another 90 people being injured if we would have accepted that performance. So I think it's just an overall commitment from leadership to get better.
It's a great credit to the organization if you can win this thing. It indicates that you've got some great, great safety statistics, however, lagging statistics. So the John T. Ryan is a reflection of how we used to measure safety in these mining operations. Nevertheless, it's quite a plum if you can win it.
It may have taken years to fully assimilate a higher standard of safety into the company, but now Jackson's mission is to spread that belief system beyond the mine site to the neighborhood.
People are taking these behaviors back into their houses and into their farms. And in Saskatchewan, as you well know, I mean, our farm accident rates are right through the roof. And in fact, accident rates outside of the mining industry in Saskatchewan are just absolutely terrible. And if we can get this cross-pollination of behaviors out into the community where people spend some time with our workers and realize that there are better ways to do things. It doesn't cost you a whole lot in extra time, and in the reality, you're more efficient in the end. People aren't getting hurt. This is something that we really want to encourage as much as we can.
If you've been watching this television series, you've probably noticed a few recurring themes. Saskatchewan has a high rate of preventable accidents, for example. Well, yes, we're making progress on that front, but we do have a long ways to go. And another theme that comes up frequently is that being safe does not cost money. In fact, it saves money, whether that means keeping people from needing the health system or losing time at work. And perhaps no one is in a better position to measure those costs and to see the need for improvements than SGI, the provincial insurance company. We took that question to Earl Cameron. He's Vice President of SGI and Board Chair of Safe Sask.
Well, the biggest safety challenge we face right now, we've had a high rate of motor vehicle accidents over the years. In 2012, actually, 183 people were killed in motor vehicle accidents, which was the highest number ever in Saskatchewan in recent history. And we've tried to create an awareness of sort of attacking it on three areas. We changed some laws. We've increased enforcement with the police, with our partners. And the numbers are starting to come down. They've come down fairly dramatically in the last couple of years. But we've got a long ways to go on impaired driving. It's still one of the #1 problems in this province. The highest number of fatalities involve impaired driving, which is, it's really sad to see when everyone knows it's something they shouldn't be doing. You know, on Monday mornings when you come to work, it's disappointing to see that someone lost their life due to an impaired driving incident or worse. It's shocking, it's disappointing because everyone knows you shouldn't do it. We in Saskatchewan have spent a ton of advertising, created a lot of awareness. Enforcement's trying their very best to get out there and pick up those drivers who choose to ignore.
Well, not the only player in all of this. The motor vehicle driver carries the most responsibility by far. It starts with planning, making arrangements for a designated driver, for example, if you're planning on consuming alcohol, or checking the weather conditions before embarking on a winter trip, and so on. Interestingly, though, technology is assisting drivers in their bid to arrive at their destination safely. Technology that ranges from the very basic, like seatbelts, to much more sophisticated ideas.
Well, statistically, you can look back and you would see back when there was no seatbelts, there was no seatbelt laws, a high number of people were killed in motor vehicle accidents. They were either ejected and the vehicles rolled over them, or they were ejected into a hard object, either the parts of the dash. There was no safety at all. And seatbelts, certainly, I mean, it's the #1. It's the easiest thing you can do to prevent injury. And cars now with the airbag systems, along with seatbelts, there are people being in very bad accidents who are walking away with either minor injuries or in some cases no injuries just by wearing their seatbelts and having a vehicle with that technology. Certainly the technology is starting to get better and better in vehicles, making them safer. And I'm very hopeful that some of that technology will come even quicker to prevent those types of collisions where there is human error. And if you look at what they talk about with autonomous cars now, it's down the road a ways, but they're adding those features every year. And the collision avoidance systems really will help keep people safe. On the other hand, I mean, motorists need to be accountable themselves, make sure they wear their seatbelt, get back to, good driving habits, protecting their friends and family, thinking about that before they make bad decisions.
With responsibility for driver licensing, vehicle registration, and compulsory insurance, SGI has a high-profile role in advocating for safe roads, but it's also a business. So it has to not only promote safety externally to the citizens of the province, it has an internal safety program to run as well.
Certainly at work, we talk a fair bit about traffic safety, obviously, because it's front and center. We've switched that in recent years to talk about all sorts of safety, including, obviously, workplace safety is important to us, and we have areas where we do have more than just office workers. Our people are out in the field, or they're out at our salvage centers. And we have safety programs in place for them. We try and create that awareness early in the day for them, so that they have safe practices. I mean, the key with safety, a lot of it is just being aware of the issue and then doing something about it, not just ignoring the issue. And there's lots of risks you can mitigate easily, you know. We talk all the time about, you know, the objects that you always bumping into and tripping over. Why are they still there? You know, what machinery needs to be repaired? Even as simple as reaching the high shelf on a filing cabinet. We used to have people who would stand in chairs. Now we have proper stools for them. We have ladder training for our adjusters. Our adjusters don't go up on high roofs. You know, there's all sorts of ways to mitigate so that they don't get hurt, so they get to go home safe. We're one of the only insurance company I know that actually dismantles total losses and then resells those parts back onto claim files so that we can repair more cars and keep insurance costs low. Dismantling vehicles is more dangerous than just working in an office environment. So our people have to be trained. They're mechanical, and we have rules about what they can do, what they can't do, and they're the champions of that. Our employees take great pride over there of being safe and making sure their fellow workers are safe beside them. We've raised that awareness, and they were very good at it. I think maybe more so because it's a more dangerous situation, like what you might see in other industrial areas, where in the office environment people get lulled into maybe a false sense of security. If you raise a level of awareness, people will do the right thing and either get help with something or report it, and it changes your behavior. I mean, safety glasses are a great thing, and yet lots of people, there's eye injuries all the time, and why is that? Safety glasses prevent that. It's a matter of having them accessible and creating that awareness. You need to put them on.
Now that the program is seeing some positive results in workplaces around the province, the next step is to take it into homes. Earl Cameron is front and center when it comes to Mission Zero. And through his role at SGI, he naturally found himself at the table when Mission Zero was first conceived. And today he heads the board that oversees the program.
I think Mission Zero has a really strong brand, and people are starting to relate to it. If you look at the top 100, the top 200 charter companies in this province, a lot of them are Mission Zero companies. Mission Zero has done a great job of creating that awareness. And now we need to take that awareness and translate that into behavioral changes, and that will equal positive results. It isn't just about the workplace. It isn't just about driving in a vehicle. It's about 24 hours a day. And when you go home, I mean, a lot of injuries happen at home. And why is that? Again, you're sort of lulled into, well, the home's a safe place. I don't have rules there. There's no rules written down like there is in a workplace or traffic rules. And I think you see the shift now, and hopefully we'll see it even more so with young people getting safety lessons in school. When you're young, you're very impressionable. They'll stay with you the rest of your life.
But even a seasoned veteran of the safety story can find themselves in need of a reminder that we have to be aware of our surroundings at all times. You can never be too vigilant about your own safety.
It's just the right thing to do, and it costs you nothing almost, right? People always think safety costs you money. It really doesn't. It saves you money. Training costs you money, but it saves you money. But a lot of it isn't even training. It's just making those resources available to people, eh? If you knew how to climb a ladder, you know, you're probably a lot safer. When we brought in ladder training, I'd climbed ladders as an adjuster for years. I never knew that was the wrong way. You know, I was safe enough, but I didn't know the right way. I mean, it's much safer. When we brought and promoted safety glasses through Safe Saskatchewan, you know, you couldn't imagine how many people didn't realize that they should be wearing safety glasses during just something very simple. And I always tell the story. I was home one day cutting my tree. I was up on the ladder cutting. I had my ladder safe, and I was cutting this tree. Grandma next door yells over, my lady that gives me the pear, "Earl, what are you doing?" "Well, I'm cutting a tree." And she's 80 and doesn't come from Canada. And she says to me, "Where's your safety glasses?"
Well, that concludes another episode of Zero. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm Paul Martin.